Try HelloFresh UK to get 60% off your first box, 25% off for 2 months, and to of course help support this channel. Link is down in the description. Thank you for your support. Well, we all know that when it comes to Football Manager, rebuilds are the in thing at the moment. But all we tend to see are top English clubs being rebuilt yet again, or some other saves from the very big nations. But what if you want something different? Something a bit more obscure, something a bit more challenging, or something outside the realms of the big 3 or 4 European leagues? Well, you're in luck, because I'm going to give you some ideas. Today, we're going to have a little bit of fun as I'm going to run you through 3 of my unfancied rebuilding challenges of clubs that have fallen down the pecking order in their respective nations and perhaps need to be restored to their relative successes of the past. So if you're looking forward to that, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. Let me know who you're managing in FM24 and if you have any other club ideas that you think fit this mould. We have already done a few FM24 save idea videos, which are up in the eye above. And of course, we're well into our 2 long-term stories now. But this one's about you. There's a couple of bits of credit that I have to give to other people as we go along, because 1 or 2 of these have come from your suggestions. But otherwise, I've been scouring Europe. I think I've got a few ideas. So we're not going to hold up with too much more preamble. Let's get straight in to my number 3. Well, of the clubs we're going to talk about today, this one at number 3 is probably from the biggest nation and the most reputable team. And of course, I'm talking about FC Groningen. They are a side from the Netherlands who had an absolute disaster on the pitch last season. They went through managers after a poor summer choice and they only won 4 games out of 34. It was a pretty dismal effort. But what you have got now is a side with a very good base that's been in Europe in a not too distant past and is favourites to come up with brilliant facilities. There is a slight tinge of disappointment if you take on this save though. The first of them, and it's just a personal preference, I always struggle with leagues where you've got sort of B teams in there. I don't know why, maybe it's just my old school English pyramid mentality, but I find it a little bit harder to get motivated for those games. But the big bad news is that you're going to have to get rid of one of the best named managers in football if you do replace them. The good news though, let's flip straight back to that, is that you have got a squad that is arguably ready to come straight back up. Familiar names if you're used to managing in England, and a chance to get back up amongst the big boys with the likes of Ajax, Feyenoord and PSV. And the big challenge here is, can you go from playing their B team to playing their A teams very quickly? If we have a look at the senior squad that Groningen have got, 2 names stand out to English football fans. Leandro Bacuna, formerly of Watford, Cardiff, Reading and most notably Aston Villa. He is their captain. He's a 31-year-old experienced midfielder, and you can see he's a pretty good player for that level of the game. But the other one is maybe a bit more of a surprise, and even some of the Scottish folk will recognise him, because Kevin Van Veen is a former Scunthorpe and Motherwell player who is now plying his trade in a Dutch second tier, an experienced player who's been around the block a little bit in recent seasons, and he's gone with the aim of helping Groningen back to the top tier and hopefully getting amongst the big boys and their senior teams. You have got more experience in the squad as well. I've put them in age reverse order. So you've got a little bit to lean on. You've got a bit for the mentoring groups. But this is a very difficult challenge. You can see the wages are fairly low. So if and when you do get back up to the top tier, it's going to take a bit of work to compete with the big sides again. But all the facilities and all the infrastructure is there. And if you get it right, you know in Dutch football, you're going to get some super youngsters through. So you might think based on the FM introduction that this one's going to be easy, but they're actually sitting in 11th place as I record this in real life. They're not doing particularly well, and it is a very competitive league with a lot of closely matched teams. Of course, you have got to factor in with the B teams that can't go up and things like that, but overall, a very good division. Lots of competitive teams, the likes of Adu Den Haag, you've seen them in the top tier recently, Roda JK, Venlo, etc. And Willem too, another one that could have been a candidate for this. So it's all about whether you can get through great players, whether you can develop the youth system, and whether you can get Groningen back to their former glories against the senior Ajax team rather than the reserve one. For number 2, we take a dip down to semi-professional football and we go to a league that we know very well from last year's long-term story. In FM23, many of you will know I managed Lisbon Distillery starting in the 3rd tier of Northern Ireland. Well, this year there is one hell of a save starting at the same point. Warrenpoint despite finishing second in the second tier last season, were relegated due to certain licensing issues in real life. Some very bizarre politics in Northern Irish football, but the fact of the matter is, a side that have generally yo-yoed between the top two tiers of Northern Irish football in the last decade now find themselves down in the third tier. Our club from last year, Distillery, are still there, and they've got a few decent players to challenge, but Warrenpoint have kept a bit of their squad together. They've also got some good young players in. They are a side that you should be taking back up. There are some clubs with good facilities in Northern Ireland, and you do see good youngsters coming through. But what you've got to reflect on here is that for the level, you have got some very good footballers. Players like McCaffrey have top tier experience and have been at Warrenpoint for many a season while they've been competing higher up the pyramid. There's good experience in the likes of Stuart Hutchinson, but of course, finances are going to be the hardest thing to manage. While the wage bill's not significant, it is big by third tier Northern Irish standards, and because of the drop due to licensing, a few of those bigger earners have now left the club. So it does leave you with a little bit of a difficult situation to deal with. If you don't go up first year, you've probably got a lot of work to be done. But a good thing in Northern Ireland, there's always packed reserve teams, and you've always got enough to fill a squad if you need it. Can you wheel and deal your way back to the top tier of Northern Irish football, or are you going to get stuck in the third tier with financial trouble? It's a challenge that is definitely more difficult than the Groningen one, but are you going to be brave enough to take on the third tier of Northern Irish football, as I did in my long-term save last year? Let me know if that one tickles your fancy, but if not, why not try a number one? And this time, I've got one of our regulars to thank. So at number one, I have to go back to a comment from one of our regulars, Oliver, which popped up in our original rebuilding save ideas for FM24. In that one, we did focus on some of the bigger nations and some of the more headline stories among them. But this one was a really good suggestion. Edburg from Denmark, a side that we've been used to seeing in European qualifying and certainly as stalwarts of the top tier, have now dropped down all the way to the third. A really big challenge, and you know me, I love Scandinavian football. We've not been down as far as the third tier before, but we did a save in FM22 with Viborg in the second tier, and that was brilliant fun. So when I'm asked, I always recommend a save in Denmark. I think it's plenty of fun. It's a competitive pyramid. There's some good sides at the top, but this is a little bit of an outlier. You've got a league that is largely either amateur or semi-professional, but as you can see, there are one or two pro sides in as well. But Edburg just stand out. They've got great facilities, they've got a good stadium, they've got a professional setup, and they're expected to be in the top tier. Your job is to try and take them back there. There are a couple of familiar names if you want to take this challenge on, particularly if you're a fan of English football again. So let's go and look at one of the main ones. Newcastle, Carlisle fans, do you recognise this boy? Elias Sorensen, former Newcastle youngster, had a game at Blackpool as well. He is one of your young strikers with a bit of ability. Former under-21 international for the nation as well. And another name that sticks out to me, not one of their best players at all, but Tobias Bjornaby. And yes, if you're a Liverpool fan, if you're a Blackburn fan, he is Stig Bjornaby's son, and he is a part of Edburg's plan this season. So you've got the strongest squad in the division on paper. Again, there's a few outliers with wages due to the speed of the fall. Matthias Jorgensen earning 3 times anyone else in the squad. But again, the big question becomes, as it was for me at Viborg, to be financially viable, do you have to keep a carousel of young players coming through? And do you have to keep selling? Because sometimes it is the only way to balance the books. If you don't make 2 quick promotions, you could find it very difficult financially. So it may be a case of selling and then wheeling and dealing in a transfer market, rather than just floating to the top with their current squad. But for me, a really good challenge to finish on. Edburg, a great challenge to take on in Danish football, and overall, a really fun nation to manage in. So definitely, that one gets my seal of approval. And thank you to Oliver for the comment. So those are 3 of my unfancied rebuilding save ideas for FM24. Let me know if you like them or if you plan to take any of them on. Have you tried one of them already? Let me know in the comments if you have. If you did enjoy this video, please do put a thumbs up on it. And let me know in the comments if you have any more similar suggestions that you feel would fit this format. And if so, maybe you'll be getting a shout out in the next episode as we come back for another top 3. If you want to stay up to date with our 2 long-term daily stories, then please do subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Both playlists are in the eye above, as well as our youth development guide from a couple of weeks ago. You can also follow us on Twitch and on the football podcast too. The long-term stories will return as normal tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled for them. But thank you very much for watching this fun little episode. I hope you enjoyed something different. Thank you to HelloFresh UK for the continued support. Link for that down in the description below. But thank you for watching, your support as always. And if you do choose to take on one of these rebuilding challenges, I hope you get on well and enjoy it. Thanks for watching.